And I think that's what people feel in marriage that they don't know the purpose of, is because they're kind of parked in their driveway playing with these buttons, but it's taking them nowhere.
Yeah.
And after a while, that's going to get boring. It's going to get unexciting. And now you feel like this is very expensive. This is costing me a lot to manage. I have all this and it's all I can do. And that's not what marriage is.
We are talking about finding the purpose for your marriage. Just introing into that, I think that's something that we have talked to couples when we're, coaching them, and we ask questions along those lines over the years, and not a lot of people know the answer to it.
Yeah, because just like for some reason, people think that marriage is just automatic. You put it on autopilot, because a lot of people get married for emotional reasons, emotional needs. What can this person do for me? Actually, just really selfish reasons a lot of times, even if we don't realize that's the case, but mostly selfish reasons. So we don't take the time to really think about why we're getting married, what's the purpose of marriage, what's the purpose of our marriage. We don't educate ourselves on that. We talked about the fact that most people will start a business. They will start a business and they will have a plan. They will have vision. They will have direction. They will have, this is what I want to do year 1, year 2, up to year 5. They plan because they plan to do things on purpose.
Yeah.
On purpose to get a certain result.
Yeah.
And they will seek out the information. They will seek out the people, the institutions, or whatever they need to make that thing happen because you're determined to be a success. So that same attitude and character you need to also have with your marriage, because marriage is not successful. Marriage isn't successful just because in the initial part of the relationship, y'all got along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because tests and trials will come. We talk about that all the time. Tests and trials will come. That's going to try your marriage. And if you don't have the proper plan and the foundation, you're going to fail.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked about in our workshop how the reasons why people get married. And you touched on it, the different needs that we have, because there are a lot of needs in marriage that need to be met. And, I'm not saying you shouldn't take those things into consideration when you're marrying your spouse, but at the end of the day, those reasons don't match what the purpose is. So let's give an example of that. Reasons people get married: financial security, sex. They want to have sex, and maybe they're a Christian. They want to have it legally. So like that, yeah.
People don't want to be lonely.
Yeah.
Status. It could be a lot of reasons.
Yeah, and some of those aren't bad. Some of the things we listen aren't necessarily negative, but you can't confuse that with purpose, because the things that are the reasons you weigh pros and cons to get married, if the pros outweigh the cons, it's like, okay, I believe I can be financially secure with this person. All right, fine, I'm gonna marry them. But then once you get married and you're staying married, those things aren't enough, because what is it we say in our vows typically? Rich or poor, sickness and in health. So if you're married because of the person's physical outward appearance, and then something happens in the marriage and they're not physically able like they were at the beginning, then suddenly you've lost the reason for why you got married. If the reason you got married is financial security and y'all go through some hard times, which is perfectly natural and okay, but then suddenly you've lost the reason you got married, and now you feel this desire to break away because what you signed up for, you're not getting.
So let's define what purpose is.
Yeah.
And I really want to try to make this as really simple as possible, because I feel like the reason why people fall out of love or they have these feelings of separation is because when you're not operating in the purpose of something, you lose the joy.
Yeah.
You lose the excitement. You lose the wonderment of it all. The first example that comes to mind is, what is the purpose of a vehicle? What is the purpose of a vehicle? A purpose of a vehicle is to get you from point A to point B faster than you could if you was walking or riding a bike. It's more convenient than catching a bus or a train or something like that. The purpose of that vehicle is to get you there. It's also there to shelter you in inclement weather and stuff like that. Now, in today's cars, we have all kinds of features. I mean, cars are hardly even cars now. I mean, they have super sound systems and all these gadgets and things that a car can basically do. Now, what if you purchased this car with all these bells and whistles, or all you did was got in the car and play with all the buttons, listen to the sound system, watch the, media that's on the dashboard and things like that, and you turn the heated seats on, and okay, that's cool. That's cool for a minute, but that's not the purpose for that car.
And if you can't run it, it's not a car.
That's amenities to having that car, but it's not the purpose of the vehicle. The purpose of that car is to get you to work, get you to school, get you to your family's home, vacations, or whatever. It's designed to take you to a destination or multiple destinations if you allow it. But if all you do is get in the car, turn it on, and play with all the gadgets and buttons, after a while, that's going to get boring. And it's going to get expensive. Because let's say you finance this vehicle and you got a $400 monthly car payment on this thing, and this is all you get out of it, it's not worth it. And I think that's what people feel in marriage that they don't know the purpose of, is because they're kind of parked in their driveway, playing with these buttons, but it's taking them nowhere. Yeah. And after a while, that's going to get boring. It's going to get unexciting. And now you feel like this is very expensive. This is costing me a lot to manage. I have all this and it's all I can do. And that's not what marriage is.
Yeah. So people oftentimes abuse and misuse marriage because they're using it like, okay, I'm getting married for sex. Okay, that's an amenity of marriage. It's a part of marriage. It's an important part. But it's not the purpose of marriage.
Right.
And if you don't know what the purpose is, what's going to happen is when suddenly sex is not fulfilling you the way that you thought it would, suddenly you want to throw away the marriage when in reality you were never using the marriage properly. So using the car example, you got all these amenities and things, but at the end of the day, when you realize that car can't do what it's designed to do, what it's supposed to do, suddenly you're going to be dissatisfied with that car because it has great AC. You can get AC somewhere else. Yeah. You know, see what I'm saying? So like you can get it somewhere else. You got this car because the car is supposed to do what cars do, fulfill the purpose of getting from point A to point B. So first part of this, of finding your marriage's purpose is, what actually is the purpose of marriage? What is marriage? And I'm going to say it like this, using a vehicle example. Marriage is God's vehicle to expand his kingdom.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He created it for that purpose. I'm going to give you the full definition that God gave me. Marriage is the framework God created to covenant two human beings together and himself to carry out a design neither of them can complete on their own. Yeah. So he created this structure, this vehicle called marriage. It's supposed to tie two people together and tie them to him in this three-chord relationship. And it's designed to carry out a design, a plan, a purpose, that his will, that these two people that have been covenanted together wouldn't have been able to do unless they were married. That's what marriage is. So what do we see from that definition? Is that marriage wasn't designed for us. It was designed for God.
Yes.
He designed it for his purpose, his pleasure. Now, marriage is pleasurable and fulfilling because God is a good father. He created it for that. He didn't create something that was going to bring us down or that we would hate. We do enjoy marriage when it's done properly. But when it's done properly, marriage always becomes hell if it's not used in the context of which God designed it for. And so a lot of times people just say, do what makes you happy, and there's no right way or perfect guide to marriage. Everyone can do something different. No, you can't. Because eventually there's a reason why half of these things are ending with irreconcilable differences. Because everyone's abusing it and not running the vehicle correctly. They're trying to get it to be something else other than what it is. Marriage is not to fulfill you. Marriage is not to cure loneliness or emptiness, or just to be a vehicle for sex, or to have somebody who's a warm body at home, or just to bring in an extra paycheck. Those aren't the things that marriage is for. What marriage is for is fulfilling the design of God, and his will is the expansion of his kingdom. The will of the Father, the will of God, is the expansion of his kingdom.
There is fulfillment in purpose. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't seek, is the purpose of something. So like you said, if we don't know the purpose, you will abuse it. And we've been taught that for years. A great man of God by the name of Miles Monroe, he was the very first one I heard say that. Yeah. When you don't know the purpose of a thing, you will abuse it. And we have abused marriage. Even when we say abuse, we're not just talking about physical or verbal or mental abuse, that kind of thing. But abuse is anything that's not operating in its purpose. Yep. And this is why we see a lot of people just coexisting in relationships. Now, they may not legally divorce, but they're divorced in heart. They're divorced in mind and spirit when it comes to their marriage, because they're not operating in the purpose of it. They never took time to seek God's wisdom on what is a purpose for my marriage. What does God need for us together to come together that he can use to expand the kingdom of God. Yep. See, a lot of people don't get married with kingdom mindedness. They don't get married with the kingdom on their heart and say, this is why we're getting married. It's all based on feelings and emotions and the feel goods. And that's great. We're not against that. All that is part of the covenant of marriage. You should feel good in your relationship. It should be fun. You should have butterflies for each other, and that's fine. But those things are wavering.
Yeah,
they come and they go. That's not how you should build your marriage. Your marriage would not last. That's the sand kind of marriage. Sand fluctuates. Like we go to the beach and we put our tents down and stuff like that. But as soon as you start walking that sand just moves out the way. Like it just moves. It's not sturdy. You're always adjusting the umbrella, making sure it don't fly out when the wind is blowing, because sand is so shaky and so movable. That's the word, right? That's right. But let's say we was on a concrete and we put concrete around that umbrella and we walk. It's stable. It's consistent. And that's the thing what purpose will do. It will cause you to be consistent in your responses, consistent in your actions and things like that. We talk about a lot that we have a way of dealing with misunderstandings. Yeah. Because we don't always agree. We don't always get along about certain things. But we decide that we have a way on how we handle disagreements in our home. This is how we consistently do things. So that way we can assure that we always get the same results each and every time. And that is agreement. Because we're so focused on the purpose of our marriage that we're not going to let anything rob us of that.
See, it'll regulate your emotions because there are a lot of emotions in marriage. Because again, you're dealing with someone else with a whole different set of experiences, with a whole different life, but y'all got to agree on something. And so when there are disagreements and arguments and things like that, for us, it does not benefit us to stay mad at each other, to stay unhappy at each other, and to hurt each other in the heat of an argument because we have to work together, because we understand our purpose. We'll get into that in a bit, but because we understand our purpose, we know that in order to fulfill the purpose that is God's placed on our marriage, if we're constantly at odds with each other, or we don't learn to compromise, we don't learn to forgive or to say that we're sorry, we're going to hinder the purpose. It's the same reason you keep going to the job you go to, even though you don't love it all the time. It's not the funnest thing in the world. You go because there's a purpose. Now, maybe your purpose is just to collect a paycheck, but fine. That's your purpose. It is a reason that you go. When that customer is rude to you, there's a reason you don't get in a fist fight with them. Because getting in a fist fight would not be beneficial to you getting your paycheck, because you would get fired. You know what I'm saying? But you've met people who don't place the purpose above their emotions, and they will get in that fist fight. They'll get fired and they can't keep a job. You've met people who are unstable in all their ways because they won't override their emotions and make the right decision, because there's a purpose that's greater than whatever it is that they're feeling in that moment. We use the example of Jesus. His purpose was to preach the gospel of the kingdom. And part of that purpose was him dying on that cross. So he got to the Garden of Gethsemane and his emotions were so that he did not want to go. But what did he say? Your will be done, Father, and not mine. So he was willing to override his emotions because he had his eye on a purpose. Hebrews talks about how he set his eyes and despised the shame. So you'll do that in marriage. You'll despise the shame of having to say you're sorry, even if you still feel like your way was the best way. You'll go to your spouse and say, you know what, I'm sorry. Let's figure it out. Let's do it your way. You'll be faster to do that because you're more inclined to figure out how can we move forward than I am to just have my way and have to be right. See, that maturity comes from understanding your purpose.